Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Till Mets Do Us Part here on the Chop Sports Network. And of course, you can get this podcast wherever it is you listen to your podcast. It doesn't matter to us which platform you choose, just that you are listening and that you are subscribed so that you never, ever, ever miss an episode. And speaking of subscriptions, don't forget about our brand new YouTube channel. You want to subscribe over there because we drop this same podcast as a video version so you can look at our faces and check out all of the awesome graphics that we spent time making and creating for your viewing enjoyment. I hope that you like it. John Saponaro out in Los Angeles, California. Matt Ibby Ibanez back in New Jersey. Ibby, it's another week. The Mets are still rolling. We got some BS to talk about too along the way, but how are you feeling? It's a beautiful day here in LA. I know the weather's warming up back on the East Coast as well. Should be a good week. So how are you doing?
Pollen is kicking my ass, John. I just got to tell you that my allergies, I apologize to the listeners and people that are seeing me right now. I'm getting a little bit beat down by the allergy season, but I'm here. I'm not missing a week. Mets won last night. There is a lot to talk about. A lot of interesting things, a lot of frustrating things, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's former players, wherever it may be. We're going to dive into all of it. Let's do it. Let's get into it right now.
We're going to dive into it. And you know what? The allergy thing is something that I empathize with very, very, very much. My allergies got a lot better when I moved to the West Coast. And I promise this is not me throwing it in your face or anything like that. I'm just saying I have horrific seasonal allergies. And obviously out here, with the weather being warmer most of the time, things kind of don't go through that boom and bust bloom season that they do. Like in New York and New Jersey, I was a mess from like March till October. Every year, the whole time, it was absolutely brutal. And now out here, I do a little bit better. Now, obviously, things bloom differently out here too. You know, we got different things in the air. So I'm just saying that I empathize. That's all I'm saying. And if you've never been to an allergist, you should go, because I went to an allergist and it changed my life, because I found out a couple of food things that I was allergic to that I was eating all the time. And he was like, I think actually that might be affecting your seasonal allergies because you're just constantly putting things that give you an allergic reaction into your body. And I was like, okay. So if you've never been to an allergist, you should try to go. That's just my words of wisdom to you and anybody else who might be listening.
Absolutely noted. And I will do my best to try and get over to one, because I think I went one time and I took the shot test where they say, oh, let's see what you're allergic to. I'm like, I'm telling you, man, I've never been allergic to anything, but yeah, sure, I'll take your test. I took that test and my both arms blew up with everything. So clearly I'm allergic to everything. I have no idea what the hell it is, but I'll try to figure it out. But no matter what, I'm here and I'm ready to talk some Mets. Let's drop the allergies. Let's do this.
Let's drop the allergies and get into it. Listen, man, I'm going to bounce it to you really quick and just see which direction you want to go in, because I thought forever we were going to talk about the epic comeback that the Mets had. You know, now it was last week, but you know, obviously it happened after we recorded, so we have to talk about that. Right. Do you want to start there, or do you want to bounce to some of the, you know, what I call BS quasi-negativity that's happened over the last really just day or so? Where do you want to go? Do you want to start with the positive and the older news, or do you want to go right for the jugular with the new stuff?
I say let's start with what was. Let's talk about that crazy game. Let's just get that over with, because there are some things that we should hit on, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the nonsense that's been going on over the last couple of days. All
right. Well, I'll just start by saying this, man. I'm kind of bummed, because I did not see the end of that game. Now, I didn't turn it off. Met fans are going to be like, you're not a real fan. You shut the game off. No. I watched like up until the 6th inning or whatever. I had tickets to a concert that night. And so I had to leave. I was going to leave if the Mets were up 7-0, down 7-0, if the Mets were pitching a no-hitter, if the Mets were pitching a perfect game. I had to leave. I had to go. So I didn't actually watch it go down. But I did look at it and I said, man, you know, this team's got a lot of fight. You know, just the fact that they put a run on the board when I left, it was 7-1. I said the fact that they put a run on the board, and they're still to this date at the moment of this recording, one of two teams, including the Dodgers, that have not been shut out all season. And I'm like, that in and of itself shows a little bit of fight. because there's gonna be days where it's not your night. You're gonna lose, 8-2 and 10-1 or whatever. So I was just happy that the Mets put a run or two on the board and we're just gonna, lick their wounds, collect themselves for the next day. Ibby, never, ever, 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 ever did I imagine as much fight as this team has, as strong as they've been under adversity, did I think for 1 second that I was going to get a text right before the concert started. And I got several from you, from Chris Frangiola, who's been on the show. People were just like, unbelievable. Oh my God, I can't believe it. And my first reaction was, I was like, did another fucking player get hit in the head? Because I was like, I swear to God, if we're losing 7-1 or 8-1 or whatever the hell the score was when I couldn't watch it, I was like, if they hit Lindor in the head again, I'm going to fly to Philadelphia and kick the shit out of whoever did it. Like that was my reaction. And then I looked at the app and I was like, what? So that was my experience for the game, which was obviously a little bit removed. And I will say, I went to go see Russ. Anybody who listens to hip hop, Russ is fantastic. The show was absolutely incredible. So I'm not mad that I missed the end, even though it was an epic win. But that was my experience. What was your experience?
Well, on given nights, obviously, when you're married, you have you either get the big screen or you get the iPad. So that night, I had the game on the iPad, and we were watching something else on television. I was following along, and I saw how the game was going, and I was like, you know what? It just might not be one of those nights. My wife would look over, she'd be like, "Ooh, they're losing like whatever it was, like 4-0, 5-0 at the time." I'm just like, yeah, it's just they played a lot of games lately. I'm thinking, one of these games was bound to happen, so I wasn't thinking anything much of. I wasn't like beating myself up like a lot of people tend to do on Twitter when they might lose a game. But I was like, it just might be one of those nights. So, we're watching the movie that we were watching, and then I'm still following along, with my side eye looking, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, let's head to the bedroom. I'll put the game on in there. And then I turned the game on, and at the time, it was the inning. And, I see the Lindor home run, and I see how everything is just getting pieced together, and how my wife is falling asleep, and I'm literally like shaking the bed, and she's like, "Will you calm down? They're gonna lose." I was like, "No, you don't understand. You don't get like JD's up right now. If JD gets a hit here, this is legit. Like they got a shot at this game." And then he rips the double down the line. I'm going insane. I'm like, she's like, "You're gonna wake the baby. You gotta wake the baby." I was like, No. I gotta just relax. And then everything just opens up, and then Marte takes the lead, and I was just like, "This is incredible." And then Diaz comes in, shuts the door. I'm just like, what the hell did I just watch? That was incredible. And I'm getting texts everywhere. My one buddy was in Doctor Strange at the time, and he's just like, get the fuck out of here. They didn't win. I went in there, we're getting crushed. And he looks at his phone. He's like, oh my God, they won. It was wild, man. It really was a once in a lifetime type of win. People were texting me too, like, you'll never see a Met game like that ever in your life. It's just like one of those things where you had to be there. I'm sorry you missed it, but at the same time, it was truly incredible to watch, and I'm just happy that they got the win. It was really insane.
Yeah, look, baseball's a long season, and you and I are diehards, and not just for this show, but just in our life, in our fandom. Look, I'll watch every game some seasons, like every inning of every game. And sometimes you just can't. I mean, we talked about it coming off of the Kono hitter a couple weeks ago. I wasn't able to watch that game because I was working. It just is what it is. Now, I was happy I got to watch. I saw a little bit of the beginning of the game. I saw the last 3 innings, like we talked about last week with Michael Mayer. Like, I felt excited that I was just able to see Diaz close the door. I would have been happy just seeing the last 3 outs. Seeing the last 3 innings was a bonus. Life happens. This is the season on the East Coast. Weather warms up. People start going to do things outside, barbecues, music festivals. It's a big time for movies to drop. You mentioned Doctor Strange. People are going to be doing things where sometimes you can't just tell everyone in your life, like, oh, baseball's on. I will say, and again, I'm not trying to rub this in, it is a little easier on the West Coast if you're a fan of an East Coast team, because the games are on earlier and they're over earlier. So there is a little bit of a benefit there. I do enjoy that. But man, I do want to circle it back to one dude in particular, because we talked about it last week with Michael Mayer. We went in depth on him. You and I have been defending him. And I think it was another big moment for Mr. Edwin Diaz, who now, I believe it's as of today or last night, I don't remember, but it's either last night's game or today on the calendar or both, has now been a Met longer than he's ever been a Seattle Mariner. So You look at this guy. Michael said that he had a signature moment as a Met where he came in and closed the door in absolute dominating fashion on that no-hitter.
Yep.
And then you saw another instance where the Mets come back, they take a lead, the narrowest of leads, 1-run game, and what does he do? He comes in and he shuts the door again. This guy is elite. He has been elite all season long. And just, I mean, it's another big Mets moment because in years past, Ibby, you know it and I know it. That game ends one of two ways. The Mets wind up blowing that save after a big comeback, or they never come back at all. They get to within 1 or 2 runs, and the tying or go-ahead runs get stranded on second and third base to end the game. And you go, yeah, they fought, but they couldn't seal the deal. This Mets team is different for a lot of different reasons, and Edwin Diaz is a big part of that. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it's just the fact that I can't remember who said it, but it was always about, always thinking about your team in the big moment and saying how Edwin Diaz would never be able to be that guy who closes out a World Series. And I look at the guy that's pitching right now, and again, not trying to put the cart before the horse, but I'm looking at a guy that is straight filth right now. Like, everything he's throwing is hard, is sharp, and I'm seeing him handle people. And like you said, and I agree with you with the fact that this team is different in the sense that years prior, that wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have come back and they wouldn't have held on to the lead, or they would have lost the game in the end. Or I think about last night's game, or by the time someone hears this 2 nights ago, just coming back in that game and then Diaz coming in and slamming the door again. It's just I'm looking at a guy that is 1,000% confident. I'm seeing the guy that I saw in Seattle when he was lights out. And the fact that he's doing it on a bigger stage, because let's be honest, New York is bigger than Seattle in terms of eyes that are on you, specifically for baseball. He's doing it and he's dominating. That's the big thing. It's not like he's doing this with smoke and mirrors. He's going out there and he is shutting guys down. Michael Mayer brought it up how he would, go through that Phillies lineup, the heart of their lineup. I'm watching him just toy with guys. And it's that slider, man. No one's touching that slider. So the hatred of Edwin Diaz needs to stop. I know people still wait on bated breath sometimes when he comes in and he throws a ball to start, and you're like, oh boy, here we go. But I think he's earned the respect, and I think he's earned the opportunity to prove himself within a given game, if you will, for you to not really grab the Tums right away.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And like we talked about with Michael Mayer last week, his slider has been one of the best pitches in baseball. His slider has been vintage Edwin Diaz slider. He's the pitcher that he was in Seattle, early on when he was this lights out electric closer that, quite frankly, wasn't getting a lot of attention because it's the Pacific Northwest, not exactly a baseball hotbed out there. Although, the fans are great. It is a beautiful ballpark, but, that team wasn't really good, which is part of the reason why they traded a closer. They didn't exactly need one. So they traded him to the Mets for the prospect. Obviously we all know what happened there, but he has been that guy, and it's really refreshing to see. And I think that people need to, and I guess it kind of segues into a little bit of our next conversation where people need to start believing, whether you're Mets fans, whether you're a fan of a different team, whether you're a personality on the radio or on TV, whether in New York City or nationally or whatever. I just want people to understand what we're watching, and I just want to bury the rhetoric of this LOL Mets, this same old Mets. I know it's been something that you and I have been trying to bury on this show for basically since the beginning, because we didn't start the show until Steve Cohen took over the team. But Ibby, it's just, I don't know, man. It gets frustrating. You see it with Edwin Diaz, people who don't really want to look at the numbers. They just want to be upset that Brodie Van Wagenen made a bad trade. You see it with Lindor. People don't look at the numbers. They just want to look at $341 million, or the fact that, Andres Jimenez is playing good ball in Cleveland. They don't want to look deeper. You see it with, we're seeing it. I'm defending the Joely Rodriguez for Miguel Castro trade on Twitter, where people are complaining that we didn't re-sign Aaron Loop, where if you look at the numbers, The Mets are getting equivalent production out of Chasen Streve and Joely Rodriguez than they would have gotten out of Aaron Loup. Aaron Loup was not going to pitch to an invisible ERA again. I'm not saying he was going to be bad, but he was not going to be that good. And you do not reward these players, mediocre middle relievers, off of career years. You go out and you find the next one. And look, I liked Miguel Castro. I thought Miguel Castro was a pretty good arm. But the Mets made a trade to bring in a lefty, something that they needed at the start of the season. And they traded a guy who was probably, based on everything that their scouts and analytics people were saying, maybe the last guy in the bullpen or the second to last guy in the bullpen with 1 year of control left for a lefty in Joely Rodriguez who has 3. That's what good baseball teams do. I don't know when people, like, if it was the Dodgers that made this move, everybody would be wetting themselves over it. But because it's the Mets, people in the media and fans of our team are just constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And Ibby, it is exhausting. I don't want to talk about this anymore. I really don't.
Neither do I. But the problem. No, but I'm getting tired because I thought before some of the other stuff, I thought we might have opened with this, but yeah, I'm tired of literally coming on this show and almost acting as if like we have to tell Mets fans how to be a Mets fan. And I don't want it to come across that way, but at the same time, it's like, focus on yourself, focus on what your team is doing. Notice that it is, again, I always come back to this. I will always say this. It is always about ownership when it comes to a team. I do not subscribe to the idea that a team is just bad because it's that team. Like, no, it's all about ownership. And you can look at any team in any sport when it comes to that. That's what it's about. So this idea that you're waiting for the shoe to drop. I was having a conversation with a guy at work today, big Mets fan. And he was just like, we were talking about the pitching. We were talking about the comeback. We were talking about a bunch of different things. And he's just telling me, he's like, yeah, I'm just waiting for that other shoe to drop. I was like, stop saying you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, this is what this, I look at that game last night. I know I keep on saying last night. So I'm talking about Tuesday's game. Tuesday's the game. I look at that game and I say, any other year, confident when I say this, any other year, they're down 2-0, they lose 2-0. No doubt in my mind, they're not winning that game. But they fought back. They tie it with McNeil, who's been red hot. I got some great stats on him. I'll get into those later. He's been red hot, ties the game. JD with the sack fly for the insurance later on. And I think McCann had a big sack fly as well. 4-2, win the game. It's like, that doesn't happen. This team is an actual baseball team. And I'm telling you, Mets fans don't know how to react because they're not used to this. They are not used to actually winning. And we've said this in previous episodes, you can look at other seasons when the team has started off great, but I was fine back then saying, wait for the other shoe to drop because of the players that were being trotted out in those lineups. Because you knew, a certain player could only stay hot for so long, or a certain pitcher was going to stay hot for so long because of the track record that player had shown. But when you look up and down this lineup, it's stars, it's solid veterans, it's superstars, it's everything that a good team, and what could potentially be, again, not trying to get ahead, potentially be a special type of year. I don't understand why we continue to look for the negative. Or in that case, the other thing I can't stand is focus on other people. I do not care. I can't stand this. We'll talk about Brandon Tierney in a minute. We'll talk about Noah Syndergaard in a minute. I can't stand this idea of worrying about what a former player is saying or insinuating about his former team. Don't care. You're not here. Bye-bye. I do not care. Mets fans, I'm looking in the camera right now for YouTube. I'm saying this into the microphone for the listeners. Can we please stop worrying about the Yankees? Please, I'm begging you. There is no reason to. We are playing great baseball in Queens. There's the focus should be on you, not about them, not about comparing. I'm looking at Twitter. I'm seeing people comparing Nestor Cortez and Tyler McGill. Like, who freaking cares, man? When it comes down to the series, when they face each other, fine, let's have a conversation. We'll go from there because it's playful banter. But in terms of what's going on in the season, I don't care about them, and neither should you.
I agree. And it's funny you bring up like Cortez and Tyler McGill, right? That's a great example because there's the fun debate from a baseball side where you could sit there and go, here are these two guys that have essentially come out of nowhere, that are filling huge shoes. Nestor Cortez slotting in behind Garrett Cole, plus the fact that like Cole really hasn't been Cole since the spider tack, at least not the elite level pitcher that we saw in Houston on a week in, week out, start in, start out basis. And you look at Tyler McGill having to step in and be the guy who replaces Jacob deGrom, the best pitcher in the universe. So can we have a baseball discussion about the merits of who's quote unquote doing a better job or something like that? Yeah, that's fine. We can have a baseball discussion about that. We're not going to do it on this show because we're going to try to keep it Mets centric. But like, if you want to have that conversation with your your Yankee fan friends, if you're a Met fan listening to this, that's fine. What Ibby and I are talking about are the 19-year-old Yankee fans who are able to goat Met fans into things by saying, oh, we got 27 rings. Look at all the rings. It's like, dude, you were alive for one of those rings and you were like a child. Yeah. So don't tell me about rings counts. You know what? If you were alive in the 30s, you can talk to me about rings.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear you talking about rings. You're 11 years old. Shut up. So that's the kind of thing that really irks me. When you look past facts, you literally are looking, you have to like dodge facts like Keanu dodged bullets in the Matrix to get to an argument. And that brings me to Brandon Tierney, who I like. I like BT Brandon too. Tierney.
I do.
He's from Brooklyn. He grew up like 20 minutes away from where I grew up. He seems like an actually pretty good dude. Yeah. I've always liked him on SNY before he got the national show with Tiki. What bothers me about Brandon Tierney is two things. One, he's a little bit too in that Francesa mold, which I think a lot of WFAN hosts are now, which is why I appreciate people, even if I disagree with them, that have a different take and a different way of presenting facts. The other thing is he does what Francesa used to do in that he goes, I'm not here to pick on the Mets. And then he picks on the Mets.
Yeah.
And I know he's doing that because he's on a radio show and he wants to get a rise out of people. Yep. But you know what, BT? Listen to the facts. He put out a tweet where he said, quote, but the Yankees haven't played anyone. The Mets played the D-backs 6 times. Arizona's scored fewer runs than the Reds. Love the passion, but please mix in the occasional fact. And I put this on Twitter, and I know people have seen it. I know you've seen it, but if you don't follow me or the show on Twitter, I will say it again. Here's a quick fact for Brandon Tierney and all the Yankee fans. The Yankees have played 15 of their first 28 games, more than half, against 4 of the 6 lowest scoring teams in baseball, all of whom have scored less than the lowly Diamondbacks, who he claims have done such a bad job. Meanwhile, by the way, they took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers and they're playing over their heads. The Yankees have played games against Baltimore, Kansas City, Detroit. All of these teams cannot score runs. So how about that for an occasional fact? And I got that off of one Google search. Because I said, I feel like, and I'm not a Yankee hater, I don't root for the Yankees, but I was like, I feel like this is off. I feel like, and I got one Google search. People watch this show, listen to this show. We don't have producers. It's me and you. We go get the information. This guy works at WFAN. He's got all the information he could possibly have at his fingertips. And he couldn't do one search to find out that the Yankees have played more teams who have scored less runs than the Mets. Period. End of story. So BT, love the passion, but please mix in an occasional fact.
That was good. that was a nice poignant end right there. But yeah, I just I think, well, you know what? You highlighted it in your argument right there. It's just he knows what he's doing. Like, look what we're doing right now. This is what he wants. This is what anyone who does those types of things on those types of shows, this is what they want. They want the attention because they know it's going to spark something. And look, I hate the fact that that's the way that sports media has gone, where it's got, you know, this whole Skip Bayless, Stephen A type of, you know, debating and saying things just to say to create a rise because it's going to get clicks or it's going to get whatever. Like, I hate that, and it's annoying. So you have to try and just, you know, avoid it at the best that you can. But again, I like BT. I've always been a fan of him. I've wanted him to get a shot on the fan for the longest time. So I was happy when he finally got the spot because I thought he was well deserving it for a long time. And yeah, I just seeing that, it was already before that even came out, before I even saw your tweet to him and what he had originally put out, before that even happened, I saw other things on the timeline. And that's what sparked in my head this whole thing where I was going to say on the show, I was going to say, like, I'm tired of the comparisons. I'm tired of people worrying about what they're doing across town. Like, focus on yourself, because, you know, when I see people, you know, within Mets Twitter, or, you know, just chirping at people about like the Nestor Cortez, Tyler McGill comparisons, and like I'm looking at grown ass men just throwing back full lists of pitchers in New York. Like, dude, who cares? Like, focus on the team that's on that you root for. That's it. I don't care about anybody else. If I didn't follow baseball the way that I do, if I didn't have friends that were Yankees fans, and if I wasn't so disgustingly engrossed in Twitter like I am, then I would have no idea what the hell's going on with that team, because guess what? I'm focused on my team. Okay. But still, you know, I can hold a conversation with someone. I can talk to somebody, but I have, like I said, I have friends that are Yankee fans, and we have conversations that are civil and proper, and it's not just beating the other person down. That's fine. But when I see bullshit like this, like BT's putting out, it did its job. Like, we're talking about him, we're mentioning him, people are gonna look him out. And so that's what happens. And I'm done with him. I'm done with that. But you know, it is what it is. But once again, Mets fans, focus on you, focus on your team, and most of all, believe in this team. Believe in it.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, that's the heart of it, right? It's just believe in your team, follow your team, and be passionate about your team. You know, and I think you brought up Stephen A. and Skip Bayless and the likes of Colin Cowherd and these people. Like, they're hot take machines. And I think the thing that bothers me the most about Brandon Tierney's point that he put out, the tweet, and what he was saying on the radio that day was, Brandon, he's better than that. He's not a hot takes guy. He's he comes off as a real genuine person. So like when he's like throws a little bit of shade, it's kind of fun. And, you know, he'll even like kind of apologize for it, or he'll give a smirk about it, you know? So this is something where he needs to be better, because he is better than that. And we got two more people to talk about, and then we can put this conversation to bed. I know we're going to go a little bit over the halfway mark. I'm not even sure if you're aware of this other one, but I'm going to point it out to you because it dropped this morning.
Okay.
Or rather last night, excuse me. And that is Hannah Kaiser from the Apple TV Plus broadcast.
Okay.
So she put out, after the Angels pitched a no-hitter last night, the first single pitcher no-hitter of the season, she put out a tweet and said, "And look, I like that the Mets are having a nice time lately as much as the next person, but this was the first no-hitter of the year. Combined no-hitters are like half birthdays. Technically true, but otherwise insignificant." Now, I know we talked about this last week. I know that we did. But here's the thing. Even more so, which we don't have to drudge up. People can go back and listen to our episode from last week with Michael Mayer and understand what you, me, and him all think about the Kono. I just think even more so than putting down the Mets no-hitter, putting down the Mets in general by saying the Mets are having a nice time lately, put some respect on the Mets name. They were the first team to 10 wins, the first team to 20 wins, the first team to 21 wins. They have the largest division lead in baseball, 7 games, in a division that features not one, but 2 of the last 3 World Series champions. Pete Alonso is leading the league in RBIs. There's so many more accolades I could run down. They're not having a nice little time. They're a damn good baseball team. Put some respect on the Mets.
What was that person's name again?
Hannah Kaiser.
Kiss my ass, Hannah. That's what I think of that. Simple as that. Look,
or Kaiser. I think it's Kaiser.
Who gives a damn? It doesn't even matter at this point. Look, I hear that, and the number one thing that comes to my mind is, and again, I've been saying this for a while, I just feel that people do not like when the Mets are not the jester. They do not like when the Mets do well because then there's no one to make fun of. That's what it is. When the Mets are doing something good, it's always going to come back to, oh well, yeah, like the way she worded it. Oh, they're having a nice little time over there, whatever the hell she said, or things are going good for now, or the shoe's going to drop eventually, or things never tend to end well in Queens, or whatever the hell that they want to say. That's because that has always been, the considered norm of what the Mets are, and to be honest, it'd be hard to go against that because that's the truth. Yep. That's the way that the Mets were. But a change in ownership, a change in direction, a change in money, things have changed for this team, and it is showing on the field. Like you said, first to 10 wins, first to 20 wins, first to 21 wins. The pitching doing what it's doing. Pete Alonso kicking ass. Jeff McNeil, the hit god, he's back. Like all these things. Also, by the way, side note, I think Jeff McNeil is fifth in baseball in terms of overall WAR right now. So people need to respect this team. And you know what? If they don't want to, so be it. I want this team to continue doing what they're doing, so when they go into town and they kick the shit out of the Angels, she can say something about it there too. Or or whatever town, whenever somebody's badmouthing the team, I hope the Mets just go in there and win the series. That's all I want you to keep doing. If people don't want to respect you, make them respect you by just beating their team's ass. It's as simple as that. And I think, again, I've said this multiple times on the show, and I believe it to be true. You want people to respect you, just go in there and keep winning. That's all you can do. You win games, eventually people are going to have to say, you know what? Maybe I should keep my mouth shut because the Mets are kicking ass right now. And biggest division lead in baseball, they're looking sharp. They're winning series. They still haven't lost a series, right?
They still have not lost a series.
They've not lost a series yet. So, again, the only team left in baseball that hasn't lost a series. And they're facing some good teams. You want to say that they're facing some shit teams? Yeah, sure, they're sprinkled in there. But guess what? Good teams, you're supposed to beat up on the garbage. That's what you're supposed to do. I always hate that argument, too. It's like, oh, you're facing bad teams. Well, what are they supposed to do? Roll over?
If you're a good team, you're supposed to beat bad teams.
Yeah, beat bad teams. That's simple.
For years, the Mets couldn't do it.
Yeah.
For years, when the Mets were quote-unquote a good team, they didn't beat bad teams, and that was the difference. How many times could the Mets not beat the Marlins or the Nationals when both of those teams were bad, and the Mets literally had to beat them for their playoff lives? This is a different team now. It's different. I know we're a little bit over the halfway mark, but I want to turn the page to talk about how the Mets are playing well and talk about the positivity and dive into the stuff on McNeil and Cookie Carrasco and a lot of stuff in the second half. So let's just spend a little bit more time here in the first half and talk about Noah Syndergaard and talk about what he tweeted out when the no-hitter was thrown by his teammate last night. He said the first real, and I'm doing air quotes, first real no-hitter of the season. Okay, and then since then, he has taken to Twitter and tweeted more about it because he put that on his IG and it got picked up everywhere. SNY, lots of the beat reporters, lots of Met fans. Yeah, of course. Of course.
You knew it would.
I have an interesting take on it, and I want to hear yours first.
I think that seeing that, it comes across as just someone that is, I'll put it this way. If Noah Syndergaard was on the Mets when this happened, or if he was a part of it, whatever it may be, he would be touting it as it was a no-hitter. Because I look at this and I just see someone, I don't know if I want to call it sour grapes, but I just look at it as an unneeded shot, but someone that loves attention. We've known that. He likes having that shine on him. Maybe he's not getting as much as he thinks he would be out there in Anaheim. I don't know. But he put out that air quotes. He put out that IG post, knowing damn well the SNY and everybody was going to pick it up. And now he wants to put out a tweet basically saying that, oh, it wasn't meant to be like that. This was about, Reed Detmers. It was about him. It was about, my team. It's about the Angels. It's about this. It's like, if it was about that, don't put something like that out. Go celebrate with your team. Why are you on Instagram? Right? Like, look, I know we've had conversations about Instagram, like with like Stroman last year and all that stuff. It's like, I don't care if a player goes on Instagram, but when you're touting it about that given player and saying how good a certain thing was for them to do, and a no-hitter is fantastic. But if that's the case, just go celebrate with them then. Don't put out nonsense that is going to create a stir. And now he's saying, well, SNY is stirring the pot. Well, you fucking turned on the stove, man. Like like that's what you did. And you know you did that. Like, I mean, come on.
He opened the package. He boiled the water. He salted the water. He put the pasta in the boiling water. He did all of that. And then he's like, why stir in the pot?
Stir, that's
part of the meal.
Like, what is, I don't know. I mean, I look at it and I want to say it's just, I don't know if I want to say jealousy, but it's just something that it's not needed. I don't care for it. But again, this goes back to what I was just saying before. He's not here anymore. I don't need to worry about him. So, take your quote unquote real no-hitter, enjoy it, stay out in Anaheim and hang out with the nobodies, whatever.
I wish somebody, I wish I remembered who did it, but I saw this great tweet. Somebody had like, it was a picture of like all the Angels out there celebrating at the end. And they were like, this team is special. I think it was just a fan, like an Angels fan. This team is special. Everybody from the team is out here to celebrate with him. And oh my God, how incredible. And then a Mets fan tweeted underneath, and it was true. I looked at the whole picture. They're like, yeah, every teammate is out there except Noah Syndergaard, who's in the clubhouse tweeting to his whole team about it. And I was like, you know what? I don't know what the timeline was of that photo versus the IG post, but Noah Syndergaard is certainly not in that picture that was shown. So there's that. I will say this, though. I actually didn't have a beef with it in the initial post. Because, and my point to Met fans all day on social media has been this, and I'll echo it here. This is who Noah Syndergaard is. He likes attention. Noah Syndergaard's got a little bit of a weird, twisted, troll, poke the bear sense of humor. Mm-hmm. When he was here, we loved it. So you're a Mets fan. When he was on your team, you loved when he did this stuff. You can't now be mad at it that he's doing it back. What I think is cringe is the response since. Noah Syndergaard he took to Twitter and said, hate to break it to you. He quoted the SNY tweet and said, hate to break it to you, but this song ain't about you. It was about Reed, a great teammate, throwing a one-pitcher no-hitter, which is a rarity by today's game standards. Mets have a good team. Enjoy that instead of stirring shit, as do the Angels. So drop the drama and move on. Like you said, dude, you started this.
Yes.
We may have stirred the pot. SNY may have stirred the pot on this, but dude, you put all the ingredients on the stove. So I don't want to hear it. And then he was like, I don't have the second tweet, but he was like, oh, and furthermore, ban the wave, Mr. Met's a creep, and real no-hitters only have one pitcher, they're better, or something like that. And it was like, dude.
And Richard Staff's wife is never coming back. That was the other one.
Yeah, shout out to Richard Staff. But that's what I mean. Like, it's funny because that's his sense of humor, and I have no beef with Noah being Noah. I think a lot of Met fans got too angry at the first post.
Right.
But the second one is cringe, bro. You know what you were doing. Just own it. It's like the same way when like a big free agent signs somewhere and they're like, in the introductory press conference, they're like, well, it's been a lifelong dream of mine to play for the Milwaukee Brewers. And you're like, that's weird because you're from Miami and you played on the Yankees for 6 years. I don't know why it would be a lifelong dream of yours to play in Milwaukee, which is a great city, but like, let's chill and just come out there and be like, yeah, they gave me a lot of money. So like, it wasn't a lifelong dream for you to play for the Milwaukee Brewers. Bro, come on.
A buddy of mine, we always laugh at this. I think it was Tony Clark. So this is still relevant. When Tony Clark was at his introductory press conference when he signed with the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks were like brand new at that point. And I'm pretty sure he said it in that press conference. It's always been a lifelong dream to be a Diamondback. Tony, they just became relevant 2 years ago. What are you talking about? We still laugh about that to this day.
Well, you know what? If you know anything about Tony Clark and the way he leads union negotiations, that should not surprise you that he did not know what year that the Diamondbacks came into existence. Anyway, let's leave the conversation there. We've got about 20 or 25 minutes left to play with. We'll come back and we'll actually try to talk about Mets baseball. We have a first place team. They are 21-10 as of the moment of this recording. They've already pitched a no-hitter. They've already had 2 epic comebacks. They have a guy who's leading the league in RBIs. They're a damn good baseball team. We're going to talk all about it in the second half of Till Mets Do Us Part. John Sapanaro, Matt Ibby Ibanez. We will be right back. Yo, welcome back to Till Mets Do Us Part here on the Chop Sports Network. And like we always say with this podcast, Ibby, it's Shakira. You can get it wherever, whenever you want. It doesn't matter where you listen to your podcast. Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon, all of those places and more. Subscribe, and remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well so that you can watch this podcast and check out all the cool things that me and Ibby have in the background of our respected recording spaces, despite the fact that mine is being hit by a terrible glare of sunshine right now. But you know who else has been hit by a glare of sunshine? And that is our New York Mets, man. They are doing absolutely fantastic. The record speaks for itself. The wins speak for themselves. The hustle, the grit, the never say die attitude. You said in the first half, they are playing like a baseball team. And none of that can be thrown aside. None of it can be avoided. In years past, we've seen it as Mets fans where, you're like, well, yeah, they're playing great, but how long can John Mayberry Jr. keep up hitting 300? The answer is he's not going to be able to do it. When the Mets win 11 games in a row with Eric Campbell hitting 5th, odds are it's not going to last. It's not a recipe for success. When Mike Baxter, I know he saved that Nohan, but when he's in the lineup every day, you're probably not a good baseball team. When the ghost of Rick Porcello and Michael Wacha's exploded shoulder are
You're killing me now. I can't keep hearing this. We're beyond this.
I know we're beyond it. I'm trying to build some positives for the second half of the show. I'm trying to give Met fans perspective. This is what we have had to deal with.
Fair enough.
We don't have that anymore. We have Max Scherzer. We're probably going to get Jacob deGrom back in a few more weeks. We have Seth Lugo and Drew Smith, who's been a revelation. Edwin Diaz is a star. Lindor is a star. Alonso's a star. Jeff McNeil is back to being a star. Marte has brought so much to the table, even though he's had an up and down year. You've seen what professional baseball players look like with Canna and Nimmo. Even the catching position that has been largely a black hole with McCann and Nito, there's still guys who call good games.
Yeah.
That
defense
pitchers
is
like
there.
throwing to, and the defense is spot on. And all of that is led by Buck Showalter. All of that is put forth by Billy Epler and his brain trust, the revamped analytics department. I'm sure you've got to give a little bit of credit to Sandy Alderson as well. He's still there in some way, shape, or form. And of course, the man at the top, Steve Cohen, and I guess some people from Point 72.
That's right.
Were involved in
moonlighting.
Yeah. If you're making like hundreds of $1 billion a year for a company or whatever Point 72 makes, you can have some decisions. You can make some decisions for a baseball team because odds are you know what you're talking about in some way, shape, or form. But Ibby, all of that translates to a really great baseball team that does a lot of little things well. And in the first half, you mentioned the game on Tuesday night. You said, look, there's J.D. Davis getting that big sacrifice fly. But not only was it that, it was a triply productive sacrifice fly where the bases are loaded. He hits it deep to the wall. Not only does the run score, but both runners move up.
Yep.
And you're seeing that. The Mets taking the extra base. You're seeing everything that Buck Showalter said would happen, where he said, look, you might not always agree with every decision I make, but no team will ever be more prepared than we are. And what you're watching is a prepared, fundamental, very good baseball team. That's it.
100%. And I want to bring this up because it needs to be brought up. I know that we tend to be hard on J.D. Davis on this show. Okay. Sometimes it's warranted. Okay. With any player, sometimes it's warranted.
Especially me. And I'll own that. I will
that's
own
fine.
that.
But I will give the guy some props here because he has fallen on some rough luck, and I have the numbers to show it. First up, shout out to former guest of the show, Tyler Ward, aka Wardy NYM. He tweeted last night. He said, JD Davis tonight has hit anything less than 100 miles an hour and had expected batting averages of 520, 840, and 460 in all of his outs. Those are hard luck outs. To carry on that point, I bring up Matthew Brownstein's point, where he said JD Davis has put 30 balls in play this season. Of those 30 batted balls, 21 have been considered hard hits, meaning 95 plus miles an hour. Davis's 70% hard hit rate is the highest in the majors this season with a minimum of 25 batted balls. So he's hitting the ball. He's hitting the shit out of the ball. He is. He's just hitting it right at people. I like to think that over the course of the season, if he gets more at bats, those will start becoming hits. But then again, I saw Jeff McNeil last year, who was just constantly hitting it at people as well, kind of fell on some hard luck. Could end up being one of those seasons, or maybe with the Mets' luck, JD Davis starts getting some luck, and then those balls start becoming base hits. But I can't fault the guy. He's hitting the ball hard. He really is.
He is. And you know what? Look, obviously the stats bear it out. And I'm a big fan of, I know some people that listen to the show, probably they hear things like WOBA and expected batting average and things like that. And they kind of cringe because people don't like the new advanced stats and people don't like analytics and things like that. But I'm a big fan of expected batting average on a particular, a ball put in play, because it tells a lot. It tells a lot where guys are barreling up balls and where they're hitting them, because it factors in a lot of, trajectory and exit velocity and all of that. And so I'm a big fan of that stat. But even if you take those stats aside, and again, I've been I'm definitely the biggest JD Davis critic on this show, not only just between you and I, but all the guests that we've had on, and maybe one of the most vocal JD Davis critics out there, because I just don't really like him as a baseball player. However, you don't even need those advanced statistics to see that on Tuesday night, JD Davis hit every ball on the screws. The first two outs that he hit into were both over 100 miles an hour off the bat. The first one was a double play. It was hard luck. I got into some arguments with people on Twitter about it because I said there he is hitting another double play. And I mean that. I do mean that, like, okay, this is what, he's on the team to hit and he's not hitting. I stand by that, but he is hitting the ball hard, and it has been hard luck. And that's the difference, Ibby. See, and I think just to dabble back into the first half of the show just for a moment, I'll admit that while I've had some really strong opinions on JD Davis, I don't want to be right. I'd rather be wrong.
Right.
Like, I'm not sitting there arguing with people in JD Davis's first at bat about how he hit into another double play. I'm not arguing with them hoping that in the second or third at bat that he fails so that I have more fuel for my argument. I'm sitting there going like, JD, prove me wrong.
Right.
Prove me wrong, man. Right. And in a roundabout way, he kind of did, obviously, with the sac fly and the fact that he hit, like 470 miles an hour worth of outs yesterday. Yeah. So, in a way, he kind of did, even though he's hitting to some hard luck. So, yeah, look, I still think that long-term, the Mets are going to have to try to find a better solution for JD Davis and for Dom Smith. I think that the DH spot, when it's not being occupied by specifically Pete Alonso like it is for Wednesday's game, or by another regular starter, Lindor's had some good at-bats as a DH and stuff like that. When it's not being occupied by one of those guys, it's the weakest position in the Mets lineup. And so eventually I think they will have to upgrade from that. But right now, they got Cano out of the way. Yep. And that means more opportunities for JD, more opportunities for Dom. And you know what, guys? They've got about 2.5 months to show it. So go out and show it. Let's see what you got. But force the Mets' hand to make a difficult decision, because both of those guys have done it before, and I think they can do it again, but we'll see.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if, I'm not sure where or how big they would want to go in terms of the DH spot, or really, I do believe that, obviously we've talked about them acquiring a bullpen arm, which I think will happen at some point during the season. But in terms of another bench bat, I could definitely see them dabbling and trying to bring somebody in, maybe not so much a big name, but somebody that might be better working in a platoon. Because look, as an example, if they shipped out, say, Dom Smith and brought in a reliever, or they bring in someone to platoon with JD so JD can face lefties, and that person who might be better against righties plays against righties. Like, I could see something along those lines to better the bench, because I'm with you. I do believe that there has to be another bat in the lineup. And this is me assuming also that Eduardo Escobar is going to get out of his funk and he's going to start hitting the ball a little bit better. Because let's be honest, I think he's like 0 for his last 18 or something like that. So he's struggling, but not a lot of people are really talking about it because the defense has been there. He's having decent at bats. I mean, he's just it's not, again, it's tough luck, but the defense has been there for him, and so and he's provided a lot in terms of his leadership. So I kind of think he's gone under the radar a little bit with his struggles, but I'm of the thought process that he's a veteran hitter, he's a good hitter, he's gonna come out of it. So eventually, I think something will happen to the bench that is brought in from an outside source to try and better that DH, and of course, probably be a versatile piece as well to play around the diamond.
I think so too. I think realistically, when you look at, and I know we're a ways off from it, but since we're having the conversation, why not? I think a good blueprint is what the Braves did last year, where they went out and got guys who were, not superstars, but were having good years. And obviously they went off even further. And that's part of the reason why the Braves won the World Series with Duvall and Soler and guys like that. I think that's the kind of import of players you could look at the deadline to help bolster this lineup for the Mets. Or if you want to keep it with the Mets, I think if you look at 2015 around the Cespedes trade, take Cespedes out of it, the Uribe, the Kelly Johnson, versatile bench pieces that provide a lot of value. Yes. I think that's where the Mets would go. Now, if you want to go bigger, if you want to go more extreme, he's having a bad start to the season so far, but the team's really bad. It's a 1-year deal. Could I see them maybe going and grabbing Nelson Cruz if things turn around? I think something like that could be possible, depending on what happens. I think a lot of that is, what are you giving up? Which, again, 1-year deal, division right, probably not a lot. But I could see a guy like that. There was some tweets I saw about, going and getting JD Martinez from the Red Sox. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen. No, yeah.
That one seems a little bit too costly just in terms of everything. I think Cruz is more of a guy that would be likely, but, who knows? Who knows? There's plenty of ways to explore it. But right now, the Mets are playing good. The Mets are winning games, despite the fact that, Ibby, they're not a perfect team, and no team is perfect. But that's the thing. The Mets have not been this all-world. It's hard to say that because they have, one of the top 3 best records in baseball, depending on winning percentage. It's them, the Yankees, and the Dodgers all right up there with 21 wins. And they've had all these great moments, and they're in every game, and they haven't lost a series. Yes, yes, yes. But they also have not went on a run where you're like, oh, my God, look at the Mets. Yeah, they've been really good, but they haven't been on a run.
Yeah, the offense hasn't really fully clicked yet. When you really look at, just based off what we just said, excuse me, in the last couple of minutes, I could say that from an offensive standpoint, over the last, let's say, week, okay, Francisco Lindor, Eduardo Escobar, and whoever is catching, that is 3 spots right in your lineup right there that are not hitting top notch, okay, in comparison to what you expect them to be doing, okay. So, and again, they're like Pete's killing it right now, which I love, and I'll get into him in a little bit. And McNeil's doing well, so it's like you're seeing bits and pieces. Like Marte, I love the guy. I love what he's brought to the table so far. To be honest, he's been a little hot and cold. He'll go on a streak, then he cools off a little bit, then he turns it back up, then he comes back down a little bit. So we have still yet to see, top to bottom, this offense just go on a run. And in the game of baseball, that's what happens. The game is built on runs. So you're going to see at some point this season, they'll all be on, and it's going to be great. And maybe the Mets will win, 8 out of 10 games or whatever. Like, something's going to happen along those lines. But yeah, the fact that hasn't happened yet shows you the resolve of this team and the fight in this team. And this is something I brought up when we were talking about managers and Buck a while back, and things that we mentioned recently as well. It's hard to look at this team as constructed. And of course, I think that they will get better as the deadline approaches as well. But as constructed right now, it's hard for me to ever really see this team, outside of a string of injuries, of course, really going into a tailspin or a funk, because I have a hard time seeing a Buck-led team doing that. But when you had people like Louis Rojas, and you had Mickey Callaway, and you had these people like that, it was easy to see how things got out of control because there was never really control of the clubhouse. Whereas
course.
I see these guys working the way that they're working. I think Todd Zeal brought it up last night. The fact that when Eduardo Escobar slid into home for the Tuesday game, Brandon Nimmo was on deck and he was on the ground basically telling Eduardo to slide. So it's little things like that. It's those small details that everyone always talks about with Buck, where it's like that's being a good teammate. That's letting the guy know, hey, get down, get low. I'm here. I got you. Like, it's little things like that that go a long way. So when I saw that, to me, that showed just how together the team overall is. And I'm expecting good things of this season, of course. But yeah, I think that there's a lot more that can still be shown. And that's crazy to say because, like you said, they are 7 games up right now and they're 21-10. And that's pretty wild.
Yeah, because they've been doing everything that you need to do, and it really does put an emphasis on the little things, playing as a team, all those bits of cliche that we kind of try to gloss over, but they're all true in this case. You mentioned Nimmo. I mentioned earlier about the other 2 guys taking the extra base on the tag up, not just the runner that was scoring, which I think was Escobar in that situation. But then also it was McNeil knowing to go back to first on a deep ball that was going to be caught. And he winds up tagging up, going from first to second on a tag up play. It's that heads up mentality. It starts with Buck and the coaching staff, and the team has bought in. The team has bought in. Why? Because it's worked. Because they're winning games and they're showing that they're more prepared and more willing to go the extra mile than some of these other teams have been so far. And then all you need in those situations is one bounce of the ball. Now, Keith said it on the broadcast on Tuesday night a bunch about the double that McNeil hit, that Josh Bell played that into a double, could have been an error. Yeah, could have been. But when you're out there, when you're putting the bat on the ball, when you're taking the extra base, when you're putting the ball in play, you force the other team to be good. And sometimes that team is going to be really good because they are a good ball club, or sometimes they're having a good night. But sometimes, as was the case with Josh Bell, he's not a good first baseman. Right. So he's going to make a mistake. Sometimes, as is the case with Nolan Arenado, he's the best third baseman in baseball. He's been in the league 9 years and has won 9 Gold Gloves. I've seen him make that play on the cannonball 100 times. Yep. But you put the ball in play, you never know what's going to happen. Put it in play, put your head down, hustle to first. And I know that makes me sound like an old baseball fan, but it's true. Some of that stuff, I don't care if you hit a 100 hopper to the second baseman and you don't run the ball out. That one doesn't bother me. If you're trying to win a game and you hit a ball that the third baseman's got to try to make a play from foul territory as he's falling into the seats, you better run on that ball. That's when you hustle. Yeah. That's when you show it. And to your point, and I know you've got stats on it, McNeil's been a big part of it. McNeil and Pete have been the 2 most consistent offensive players since day one to right now on this team, and they've helped carry it. They've been bolstered by some of the other guys at different points. Mostly Lindor and Nimmo have been the other 2 that have been there for a lot of it, but it's been McNeil getting base hits, and it's been Alonso driving in runs.
Let's see. Where should I start with this one? I'm going to start with Pete. And I'm going to say, again, shout out to Matthew Brownstein, who continues to kill the game on Twitter when it comes to his stats. Pete Alonso's last 20 games, okay? He has a slash line of 320, 400, 507. He has 2 doubles, 4 homers, 9 walks, and 12 RBIs. That, my friends, is a hitter who is on fire. So I love what I'm seeing there. Let's go to Jeff McNeil real quick. Jeff McNeil has swung at 147 pitches in the strike zone this season. He's only swung and missed at 16 of those pitches, which equates for a 10.9% rating. Okay. Now, again, I mentioned this before. I'll mention it again. I think I said the league. I should correct myself and say it was for the NL. Jeff McNeil, in terms of F4 for the NL position players, Manny Machado's at 2.9, Nolan Arenado's at 2.0, Jazz Chisholm is at 1.6, Dalton Varsho's at 1.5, and Jeff McNeil is also at 1.5. He is a big part of what this team is doing. And the thing I love about Jeff McNeil so much this year is not only the fact that he's doing what I wanted him to do and spraying the ball all over the field, it's the fact that it doesn't matter where you put him in the lineup. And I know that a lot of people, a lot of the lineup critics, whenever it's posted on Twitter or Facebook, wherever you get your information, everyone always attacks the lineup and they're like, oh, Lindor stinks. Why is McNeil batting eighth? Or blah, 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 blah. Like, I don't care because I love having a hitter like that no matter where I put him in the lineup, he's going to provide something for me. And in turn, that kickstarts something for that back end of the lineup or the front end, like wherever he is, knowing that, like, if you told me that Jeff McNeil's batting seventh and he's around some guys that are struggling a little bit, at least I know Jeff's hot. Jeff's going to get on. That, you know, when a batter's, I'm sorry, when there's a runner on base, you know, the approach for a pitcher changes. So maybe that makes it something better for an Eduardo Escobar. Maybe that makes it better for a James McCann or a Tomas Nido. It changes the approach for the other team. So I like when Jeff McNeil is moving up and down the lineup. Do I want to see him more towards the top? Maybe I do, because I want to see him get up more times, more so than not. But at the same time, based off the lineups that Buck's been making, I haven't really had a freak out to this point where it's just like, what the hell are you thinking? Because everything that he's done to this point, it's worked.
Yeah, it has. And that's the thing, too. I agree with you. I think, you know, Jeff has shown, I know it's a small sample size, but he has shown this year to be the guy that he was a couple of years ago, the guy that made the All-Star team, and that last year looks like he's put it in the rearview mirror. And if he is that guy, if he is that guy, he should be in the top of the lineup. He should. Yeah. However, correct me if I'm wrong, there's still 131 games left.
Yeah, there's a lot left.
So, there's plenty of time. Like, Buck is still tinkering. Buck is still seeing what works. If the Mets go on a tear, the likes of which we have not yet seen, because we just talked about that, the Mets go on a winning streak where they win, 18 of 20 games or something crazy, 15, 12 in a row. Let's be realistic.
Right.
10 or 12 in a row, something like that. They go on a streak like that. I don't think Buck's going to be messing with the lineup too much outside of, giving guys days off when he needs to. If they do that with Jeff McNeil in the 3-hole and Lindor batting second and Pete batting fourth, I think you're going to see that like over the course of the rest of the season. Right now, he's taking advantage of what we all thought were huge positives in the offseason. That's what always strikes me as strange, Ibby. And this goes back to a little bit of what we talked about in the first half, where people were like, oh, I'm so happy that Buck's here. Buck's going to run the show. Buck's going to take care of everything. And then they still want to be like, LOL Mets, waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like, well, I thought you wanted Buck, and I thought Buck was going to fix it. And all Buck has come in and done is exactly what you wanted him and expected him to do. And now you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. When we signed Escobar and Canna and Marte and kept McNeil and kept Dom Smith and had Nimmo and all these, the first thing we said, oh, look how versatile all these guys are. Yeah. Look, we can move guys around. You can hit Canna anywhere. All three of our starting outfielders can play center field. Ooh, McNeil can play second. He can play third. He can play left. He can play right. Dom Smith, not really a statue in left field or right field anymore. Look at what we could do. We got the DH. We can move guys around. Everybody was so excited about it. Then they move guys around, and you're like, how could they move guys around? That's baseball, Susan.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
I
think those guys.
Yeah. I think that, like you mentioned before, like the old thought process, I think a lot of people still feel that once you have a 1 through 9 and it's successful, they think it's always going to be that same 1 through 9. But I'm telling you, I really think with the way baseball is now with analytics and how these guys are looking at the statistics every single day for everything that they're going up against, they're always going to try and find that edge somewhere. So I think you're going to see constant tinkers within a lineup because they're saying, hey, is it weird when you see, Mark Canna batting 8th on a Monday and then he's batting 2nd on a Tuesday? It's just like, well, maybe based off of the pitcher, that's we want to get him up more because he has, he has better numbers or whatever it may be. There's always going to be something to the thought process. It's not like they're just doing something just for the hell of it. Like, there's always a thought process behind it. And I'm confident in saying that now because I know that the analytics department is bigger than 3 people.
Right. And look, I'm gonna defend JD Davis here. I'm going to defend the thought process of JD Davis. There were people complaining yesterday about JD being in the lineup and batting so high. And it's like, dude, look at JD Davis's career numbers against Patrick Corbin. He went into the game hitting like 340 against Corbin in like a sizable sample size. And by the way, all he did was, again, hit like 500 miles per hour of combined, of combined baseballs to a lot of hard luck. You know, he had the big sac fly, but other than that, he was ripping outs all over the place. You know, he hits that ball a few inches either way in any of those spots. You're looking at like a 4-for-4 game from JD Davis as far as expected batting average goes. So I'm his biggest critic, but JD Davis should have been in the lineup against a lefty who throws mid-90s, who he's owned. If you're not going to play him then you know what? You should send him down or you should get him off the team. If JD Davis isn't going to play against Patrick Corbin, who has a career stat line of like 340 or whatever it is, and his job is to hit left-handers who throw mid-90s fastballs, well, then he has no place on the team because that's exactly what Patrick Corbin is, and he came out and he did exactly what you'd expect him to do. So I just think sometimes Mets fans have a little bit of clarity. You know, I go back to the Brandon Tierney thing. I love the passion, but try facts every once in a while. Yeah. You got to look at it. Guys are going to get days off. And if the days off aren't just by like the managers feel that day, if they're going, oh, you know what? Travis Jankowski has really good numbers against what's-his-nuts. Now's a good day in this stretch of, 20 games in 22 days to get Marte a day off. Don't complain that Marte's not in the lineup because he went 2 for 3 the day before with 2 RBIs. You have to understand that there is bigger things at play here than what Marte did the day before. I don't. It seems like that's an easy concept to understand, but I guess it's not. I don't know.
Before we get out of here, let's just.
We gotta go.
Yeah, before we get out of here, I just want to say one thing real quick. I'm going to keep it in my back pocket for now because I said it to you on Twitter already. I'm keeping it in my back pocket. I did put out my Cookie Carrasco prediction on our prediction show. I'm feeling pretty good about it right now from what I've been seeing. But shout out to Cookie. Carlos Carrasco is the first Mets pitcher with 30-plus strikeouts and no more than 6 walks allowed in the first 6 starts of a season since the aforementioned Noah Syndergaard in 2018. So I love what I've been seeing from Cookie. Shout out to him because if he's on, it just makes this team that much more dynamic because, like I said before, the 5 years prior to him coming to the Mets, he was a pitcher that combined for a 25 WAR. He's a damn good player. He's a special pitcher. I know he's a little longer in the tooth now. He's a little bit older, but the stuff is still there. It's working. The strikeouts are there. And the durability to this point, he's been going deeper into games. He looks sharp. I love it. Cookie, I love you.
Yeah, we never even got to it. It's been there on the ticker the whole time, so I'm happy you brought it up. I mean, the guy's been absolutely fantastic. He had that one dud against the Cardinals. It is what it is. He's been terrific. He's been a different pitcher, but not really. He's been a different pitcher from what he was last year. He's been the guy that we traded for, and that seems to be the story for this Mets team with Lindor, with Edwin Diaz, and now with Cookie Carrasco. They are all the guys that we went and traded for, and that makes a huge difference. I do think that he probably rushed coming back a little bit last year because the Mets needed pitching so badly. DeGrom went down. It was one of those, I'm not saying the Mets forced him to come back to save face because they're like, we traded for you, but it just looked like, the Mets needed help, and he stepped up and he tried to help. It looked like a guy who wasn't 100% ready to pitch last year, and it looks like a guy now who's 100% ready to pitch, and he's been a joy to watch. You blink, I mean, the last 3 outings, you blink, and he's got 88 pitches in the 7th inning.
Right.
Pitching his ass off.
Yeah.
And, that kind of length, that is going to help you. Honorable mention, by the way, we haven't even gotten into him today, but we got to go. Drew Smith.
Oh, phenomenal.
Drew Smith has been absolutely terrific. We'll talk more about him hopefully next week. John Sapanaro, Matt Ibby Ibanez, till Mets do us part. Get this podcast wherever it is you listen to your podcast and watch us on YouTube so you can see me and wonder what I've been drinking out of this red cup. Don't worry about it. It's water. We'll see you guys next time. Later.